Welcome everybody, my name is Sterling Welker, and this week I want to go over something that I hope will be able to help you with your CSS design. This is learning how to use multiple background images. So in this presentation, we're going to go over how to create a multiple image background, the proper image order, and two different ways to write the syntax. Now, to get started, I wanted to show a couple of examples that I found on the internet of websites that use multiple backgrounds. The first one I found is from marvel.com. As we can see, it's a pretty simple design. In the background, they have a red comic book layout, followed by the merchandise that they're advertising. They even added a header with a subheader and a button that says Become an Insider. This second example is from Nike.com. As you can see, this one has a few more images that they added to it. So they have a nice gray background with a couple of images on the left and right side of different basketball players. In front of that, they have their names, their number, and the teams that they play for. And finally, in the very front, they have the shoes that they're advertising. Now, both of these websites have different designs, have the same general layout, where they stack one image on top of another. This is all possible through our CSS. Now, multiple background images is a cool feature of CSS. The syntax is easy, and they can be specified using a couple of different ways. You can either use the individual background properties or the background shorthand property. We'll go over both, but I want to first start by using the individual background properties. So here is an example that I created. This box has two background images. The first, a sun and cloud, which are aligned to the top right corner, and the second, a grass and sky background, which I have aligned to the top left corner. Here on the right side, I have the CSS that I used. Now, as you notice, multiple background images are specified using a comma separated by a list of values for the background image property, with each value generating a separate background layer. You can stack the images and values on top of each other. Now, if you look where the background image property is located, I have the sun URL followed by a comma, then followed by the grass and sky URL. Now, the order of the images is very important. The first value is in the list represents the top layer, closest to the user, with subsequent layers rendered behind successfully. Now, I want to show what happens if I were to go and switch the order of the images. And to show this, I'm actually going to jump to my code. So here I have my HTML, and here I have my sun CSS. So as you've already seen, I have my sun URL first, followed by my grass and sky URL. So here, I'm going to remove that and place it behind the grass and sky URL. Now as you notice, the sun and cloud disappeared. In reality, they didn't disappear. They're still there. But the reason you can't see them is because the grass and sky image is now in front of it, because that's the order that I have them in. So it's important to remember that you need to write the image that you want to be in the very front first, followed by the rest of your images. Now, the second property is pretty self-explanatory. It's the background position property. This property will determine the image's position on the screen. As you see, the sun and cloud will move according to the position that I give it. So right now, I have them positioned to the top right corner. But I can go and change it to the top left, top center, and be in the bottom left, or even if you want, right there in the center. Now, this property follows the same rules as the background image property, in that the order of the values follows the same order as the images. So the first value in your background position will determine the position of your first image, and so on and so forth. Now, this next property is kind of an interesting one. It's called background repeat. The reason why I find it interesting is because if you don't add it, you leave it blank, or you add the value of repeat to it, the images in your background will repeat all over. So here, again, is our sample image, but watch what happens when I remove the background repeat property. As you can see, the sun and cloud get repeated all over the width and height of the background. Now, if this is the design you're going for, I wouldn't just leave it out or leave it blank. I would go and I would just add the value of repeat to it. Now, if you just want the single image, just go and add the value of no repeat. One other property that I want to show you that will allow you to design your websites even more so is called the background attachment property. This property will allow you to make the background image scroll with the page or stay fixed. So, to illustrate that, I'm going to go back here and change my CSS to my scroll CSS. Now, in this CSS, I added some text to better illustrate this property. So this is what the background will look like if you have the value of scroll added to it, which I have already. So with that, if I go over here to my website and I scroll down and up, you'll notice that the image moves with the screen. But if I were to go over here and change the value from scroll to fixed, and then come back over here and scroll down and up, you'll notice that the background image stays perfectly still, even as I navigate through my website. Now, this is a property that you can add, which, like I said before, it'll give you some extra styling room to work with. So it'll help you give you some more ideas of things you can do with your websites. Now, this is a general layout your backgrounds will have, but as I mentioned before, there are two different ways that you can write your syntax. The second way we're going to go over is called the background shorthand version. Now, I find this to be easier and also the best way to do it because it only requires the background property, and it also helps to keep the images and values grouped together. So in order to illustrate this, I created another background image that I will show you right now. Just jump to my HTML, swap it, my test CSS. Now, if you notice here, I'm actually using 3 different backgrounds for this example. So in the back, I have a nice gradient, followed by some bubbles here on the left and right hand side. And finally, in front of all that, here in the bottom right corner, I have my Firefox logo. Now, this is what the shorthand version looks like. Now, the shorthand version follows the same rules as the previous version, in that the image URL that you write first will be on the top of the stack, while the image you write last will be on the bottom. Now, if you notice, here the only property that I have is a background property. You don't need to add anything else. That's why it's called the shorthand version. So with this, follow the same order. Put your URL first, followed by all the values. So you can add the value, the position value, your repeat, attachment, size, and anything else you like. One thing you'll notice, though, is that there are no commas separating the different values. You only place a comma once you're done adding the values to the desired image. Now, as I mentioned before, I prefer to write the background using the shorthand version because it keeps everything grouped together nicely, and overall this helps me to better organize my CSS. Now, browser support for multiple backgrounds is relatively widespread, with all of the main browsers offering support without the need for vendor prefixes. Firefox has supported multiple backgrounds since version 3.6, Safari since version 1.9, Chrome since version 10, Opera since version 9.50, and Internet Explorer since version 9.0. Now, in conclusion, you can use whichever of the two methods that you feel most comfortable with. Remember again that the order of your images is very important. The image on the top of your stack is one that'll be closest to the user. And finally, the background image properties will allow you to do many things with your website design if used and organized properly. So thank you for watching this presentation. I hope I was able to help you either learn something new or better understand this concept. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.